Hello and Assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Kashif Kamran and today I am conducting the debrief session for the SBL Preseen for September 2023 exams, the very first Preseen and the very first exam setting where this Preseen model will be used by the students. ACCA has published the Preseen on the 22nd of August. And the students have been given a good enough time to prepare themselves on the Preseen before the tutor can do the debrief. And that is what ACCA recommends, that the students should do students should read the Preseen first, followed by the tutor debrief. So I hope you've ideally spent good 5-6 days on the Preseen, and now it's my turn to debrief the Preseen material published by ACCA. Just before moving on into the session, I hope my voice is getting through to all of you with clarity. A quick confirmation and we move on. Okay, thank you so much. So let's move on. Now, when you look at the Preseen published by ACCA for September 2023 exams, the Preseen is around an airline industry. And the case has been built up around an airline industry where the name of the organization is Corjetz. We'll come to the organization later on the day 2, but today on the first day, we'll be focusing on the airline industry. Now, when you look at the Preseen information available for September 23, just like the mock Preseen, which was made available earlier, if you've seen the mock Preseen, it's divided into 3 parts. Number 1, the introduction. Number 2, the airline industry. And number 3, the information about Corjetz. So that is the case with all the specimen Preseen ACCA has published and the mock Preseen ACCA has published. So it's divided into 3 parts: introduction, setting the tone, about the industry, and about the organization. We'll be doing the introduction and the airline industry today, and we'll be doing the Corjetz specifically tomorrow on the day 2. Now, just before we start the Preseen, in terms of the industry information that has been given to you in the Preseen, the industry information consists of the overview of the industry. It consists of the passenger types. It consists of the airline types by service and the airline types by models. It consists of information about the hub and spoke versus point-to-point travel, and they have been excellently explained for a layman what exactly hub and spoke is and what exactly point-to-point travel is. If you find any difficulties with jargons, you can then explore them on the Google for the meanings. Key air transport statistics have been given in, flight maintenance activities have been given in as an information. Industry challenges have been given as an information, which is very, very important. Industry KPIs have been given in for evaluating the performance of Corjetz against the industry KPIs. And then industry regulator or industry body has been given to us in part of the industry information. For the Corjetz information, we have been given the background of Corjetz, the growth of Corjetz, the ownership of Corjetz, that's about the governance. We have been given key resource information about their fleet, about their routes, about their technology, and about their people. We have been given information about the board structure, risk management, and key risk facing Corjetz as an organization, their website extracts and headline results, financial results, and the cost breakdown. So that is the information given about Corjetz. We'll be using industry today and we'll be using Corjetz tomorrow on the day 2. So let's start with the debrief session 1 today, which focus on the airline industry, which focus on the industry given in the Preseen, and we'll read through it and we'll try discussing it out and making a good summary, which will then be available to you. So let's start with the debrief session 1 and focusing on the airline industry. Let me keep that debrief now in front of your screen. I hope you can all see the debrief in front of the Preseen in front of your screen. Please confirm that with a quick yes answer. Can you see the Preseen in front of your screen now? Okay, great. So we'll go into the Preseen and already understood the Preseen is divided into introduction, industry, and Corjetz. So we're taking on the introduction and industry today, number 1, number 2 on the content page, and we'll be taking the number 3, 4, and 5 tomorrow because that's about the organization, Corjetz. So 1 and 2 today and 3, 4, 5 tomorrow. Okay, so let's start with the introduction. Okay, now in the introduction, there are lots of important informations which have been given to us, and the introduction tells us that Corjetz is a low-cost regional airline business. So that's their business model, or that's the way they operate, right? So it's a low-cost regional airline business. So they're having a business model which is on cost leadership. They're not like a premier airline offering premium services. They're the budget airlines, and the budget airlines are more popular in the world these days. So they're a low-cost regional airline business. I'll just be making use of my Word file simultaneously to make my summary. I hope you can see the Word file on your screen now. Please confirm that. This is a Word file which will be used across the day 1 and day 2 for making up the summary. So let's start making the summary, and this is the summary about the overview. And then we have to make the summary about the industry. So today we are making the summary about overview and summary about industry. Tomorrow we will make a summary about Corjetz. Right, so the first information we need to keep switching between 2 windows in the session today. And that's what you have to do at home as well. So it's a low-cost regional airline business. Control C, and we take it to the Word file, and we put our first important information from the overview under the heading number 1, and that is, we can refer this as the business model, or we can refer them as they're following the cost leadership strategy as per Porter for their business. And this is about the organization, which is Corjetz. Okay, so that's what we get to know about Corjetz, the first information. Okay, let's move on to the next one. It was established 20 years ago in Corland, so it's been there for long now, a country located in the continent of Hungary. So they are in Corland, and Corland is part of a continent, Hungary. So that is the information. Over the years, it has positioned itself as one of the world's leading low-cost airlines and is currently the second largest low-cost airline business operating in Hungary in terms of passengers. So this is a very important information we have, that this company is one of the world's leading low-cost carrier and the second largest in the continent of Hungary. It seems like Hungary has been used here as the European Union, though ACCA expects we should not predict the organization, but it seems like it's around the European Union, and it's about an airline industry which is very popular in the European Union. I'll not be naming it. So it's the world's leading low-cost airline and currently the second largest low-cost airline business operating in Hungary. So that means it's quite a successful organization we are talking about in the case study. So anywhere we need to speak of the success, this is the success of Corjetz, number 2. So it's the world leading. So let's put it under one information like this, Corjetz, and then we're getting all information about Corjetz. So number 1, Corjetz is low cost. Number 2, it's world leading. So 2 very important informations we are getting so far, so forth about Corjetz as an organization. Okay, let's move on. Let's take the third fact in the overview about Corjetz. Next paragraph. Corjetz currently operates nearly 1,000 routes in over 30 countries across Hungary. So they're a regional airline, right? They're operating just within a region, that is the continent of Hungary, and they're operating 1,000 routes in over 30 countries. Its head office is based at near City Airport, located in the south of Courland. Hungary is a politically stable and economically developed continent in the world. So if you look at the Porter Diamond, Hungary has a huge advantage for business to come to Hungary because it's a politically stable and economically developed continent in the world. Most of the countries in Hungary form a trading bloc which facilitates free trade and free movement of people within it. Each country in Hungary uses its own currency. Coreland currency is the dollar. So there could be some sort of exchange rates volatility because each of the country within Hungary have their own currency, and Coreland, where Corjetz is operating from, is using dollar as the currency. We'll see is there anything about exchange rates later in the case study. But currently the information which is important for me is the country, their routes. Corjetz is currently operating 1,000 routes, so that's quite huge, and they're operating 30 countries across Hungary. So Control C, and I'll take this information on my Word file. Control C, back to my Word file, and I put information about this. So 1,000 routes is a very important information I should keep in mind for the day of exam, and they're operating in 30 countries I should also keep in mind. So we'll make a summary. Number one, so far, Corjetz is a low-cost business model, cost leadership. They're operating on 1,000 routes and 30 countries across Hungary. And more importantly, they're the world leading low-cost carrier. So that's how you make yourself familiar with the facts before the day of exam. Another very important fact I got through was this about the country. The country is politically stable. Sorry, the continent is politically stable and is very economically developed. And that is a very, very important information we have about this country. So this can give them a competitive advantage or a national advantage in terms of the Porter Diamond. So we'll take this as Control C. We take it back to the Word file and we put it under a new heading, which is Hungary. So Hungary is basically the continent, right? And in terms of the continent, we're getting the first information that Hungary is politically stable. Hungary is politically stable and economically developed. So politically stable is one of their advantage. Number two, economically developed is another advantage. You can think about something like best here, or you can think something about the Porter Diamond here in terms of your assessment. So advantage, and it's an advantage to this continent that they're politically stable and economically developed. So business will be attracted, no doubt about it, to this region. So that's about the continent. Okay, let's go back, and we're getting another information here that each country in Hungary uses its own currency. The Coreland currency is dollar. I'm not taking it anywhere. If I need to take this information, I'll take it on the day two when we are talking about Corjetz. Okay, then you come down. Another very important information about Corjetz is that Corjetz is operating a point-to-point service, meaning that it operates its flight directly between destinations. This means that passengers do not have to travel to or change flights at a hub. You know these hub models, primarily if you look at Emirates, Emirates has a hub in Dubai. So if you take a flight from anywhere, suppose you take a flight from Singapore to New York, Emirates will be stopping at their hub in Dubai, and then they will continue their journey from Dubai to New York. Or if you're taking a flight from my city in Lahore to like is taking a flight to like Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, they will be stopping first at Dubai, and from Dubai they will take the second flight to Jeddah. So you need to stop at Dubai anyhow. So that's like the business models which are known as the hub models. They're not following the hub model. They're taking you from one point to another. So if you want to travel from one city to another city, they will go from one city to another non-stop. They will not be stopping at Coreland. Coreland is the base where they're operating from, right? So it's not they will be stopping at Coreland every time. They will take you from point to point. So that's more easier for the passengers. So Corjetz is operating that point-to-point service model that is operating flights directly between destinations. So not stopping at Coreland every time. So that's their business model. So we'll take it back to the Word file and another very important information about Corjetz, and that information is their business model. They are operating It's not the hub model, stopping at the hub every time, just like Emirates do, but it's like a point-to-point service, more convenience for their passengers. I hope you're familiar with the Emirates model, right? That's not the case here with Corjetz. Okay, then you move on and it says, this means that the passengers do not have to travel or change flights, fine, airport and to reach the destination, which help Corjetz reduce its operating cost. Because you're traveling from end to end, you're not stopping every time at core land, or you're not stopping every time at your hub, just like Emirates do. So it's saving lots of your cost here. So this helps Corjetz reduce operating costs. So this is very important information for me in terms of any financial analysis. Because of the business model, they're saving lots of their operating costs. That means their profit margins will be good. So you take this information, this saves lots of cost for the company. So bracket close. So I'm just putting it this way. This saves a lot of cost for the company, and keep this information in mind. Okay, let's go back to the case study. Sorry, I was just writing it on the Word file. I hope you can see it now. This saves a lot of cost for the company. I just put that in the bracket here because they're following the point-to-point service, right? Okay, just let's go back to the Preseen. It also keeps cost low. Why? Because they're operating its no-frill approach. You know the no-frill approach airlines in the world, right? Normally known as the budgeted carriers. And the budgeted carriers don't offer you premium services like in-flight entertainment or meal services. If you want to take a meal, you need to pay extra for that. If you want an extra leg space, you need to pay extra for that. So these are the airline models which the budgeted airlines follow everywhere in the world. Their focus is on low cost. Their focus is to take you from one destination to another destination at cheap airfares, which might be very cheaper if you compare them to like premium services like Emirates, etc. So there are no frill approach to their flight delivery. That's very important. They have the no frill approach to their flight delivery. That's very important. So not how they are operating a low cost model. They're operating a low cost model because they're following a strategy which is known as no frill approach. And I hope you're all familiar with no frill approach. That means not offering any extra or any premium services like meal service, etc. If you want the meal service, you need to pay for it. So that would be an income for the airline. And for that reason, because they're offering a no-frill model, helps keep cost lower. And that's the business model they're following, right? So remember, they're a low-cost business model. And how they're keeping the cost low? Firstly, because they're traveling point to point. And secondly, they're offering a no-frill model, no in-flight entertainments, no better leg space, and no meal services. If you want to avail such things, you need to pay an extra price for it. So they are low cost because of no frills. They're low cost because of point-to-point service. So that's the reason of their low cost. I hope you're clear with that so far, so forth, all of you. Okay, the last thing from this introduction. This approach means that flight meals are not provided unless paid for separately, and includes the automation of a wide range of its process. So they've automated most of the things. When you know automation saves a lot of cost, including the booking is automated, flight documentation is automated, so it's saving a lot of money on that. Baggage drop and flight check-ins are all automated. So we know airlines these days operate through those apps. You show the boarding cards on your apps and everything is digitalized. So that's saving a lot of paper cost for the organizations and their operational expenses. Additionally, it operates a profitable and a popular portfolio of routes over 130 airports across Hungary. So they are operating a profitable and a popular portfolio of routes between over 130 airports. So what's the reason of the profitability? Low cost. What's the reason of their profitability? No frill. What's the reason of their profitability? Point to point. So if someone asks you why this organization is profitable over 130 airports across Hungary, you know the reason for that, right? So it operates profitable and popular portfolio of routes. and you know the reason for that. So I'm taking this as my last information from here before we jump to the second part of our discussion today. So the last part, we're getting Corjetz. Sorry, just let's put this way. It operates a profitable and a popular routes. If someone asks you profitable, why? So you know why profitable. First, low cost. Secondly, no frill. And thirdly, point to point service. That's the reasons why this organization is profitable. More importantly, please ensure that you know the facts of Corjetz. They're using a lot of technology in their boarding process, the flight check-ins, the boarding, the luggage. That technology is also helping them to reduce the cost, right? And use of automation. So they're using a lot of use of automations in check-in and baggage, in check-in and baggage. So that technology is also helping them to keep the cost lower. So I hope you will keep these facts on your fingertips about Corjetz. Have you absorbed these facts? Are you finding the way to absorb them? Now see, once this summary is prepared, this summary is lesser than what you're looking at on a pre-scene. And this summary is what you are revising perhaps every day for 30, 40 minutes. And every day, if you give 30 minutes through the summary, you keep absorbing 1,000 routes, or you keep absorbing low cost, you keep absorbing no frill. And these terminologies comes to your mind and would be so good to recall on the day of exam. Is it fine for all of you? Are you finding this way effective of summarizing things under heading? So we have a heading of Corjetz, number one. We have a heading of Hundria, the continent, and you know this continent is very stable politically and economically. So we thought about something like Pest and Porter Diamond here for a minute. We talked about the profitability and why, the reasons. We talked about something like the cost leadership, Porter generic strategy. They're following the Porter generic strategy of cost leadership. So we had some hints in the opening overview. Is everyone clear? Should we move to the next part now, which is the airline industry? The second part of our discussion today, airline industry. So should we start taking information about airline industry? Are you fine, happy with the approach for the first overview? Was it the same when you were doing it? Please tell me. How many of you did identically the same as I did in the first part of the overview? Or did you find some change and you find this more effective? Waiting for your answers quickly so we can move to the airline industry. Yes, please. I'm waiting for your answers to move on. Did you find my approach different from yours, or you find the one of your approach was better than mine? Okay, fine. Thank you. Let's move on then to the airline industry. Okay, the second aspect of this pre-scene is about the industry, which we are covering today. And obviously, the third one is about Corjetz, which comes tomorrow. Okay, so it's quite similar, so that's good, right? So I hope this debrief is helping you absorb and become more familiar with the information. I hope this session would help you just like absorbing and becoming more familiar and bringing things on your fingertips, right? Let's talk about the airline industry. Okay, thank you. So if it is almost similar, I hope that's good because this is exactly what we did in the mock pre-scene as well, right? Okay, let's start with the industry overview. And the industry overview has been divided into lots of headings. Firstly is the overview of the industry. So we'll go back to the Word file and we'll put the first heading under industry, and that's the overview of the industry. Okay, that's the first thing, overview of the industry. And whatever we get in the overview of the industry, we'll keep putting it under this. Okay, the airline industry encompass a wide range of business called airlines, which offer an air transport service to customers, normally referred as commercial airlines. These businesses offer scheduled commercial flights, which carry both human passengers and cargo. So we know this is the biggest part of the airline industry is the commercial flights taking both human and cargo, and in most cases are carried out using the jet aircrafts. Commercial flights are those which transport passengers from one destination to another with a pre-booked ticket. Non-commercial flights are either operated privately or by the military. We know there are private jets or private airline concepts as well, or your private carriers as well, and the military. So we are focusing on Corjetz, which is part of the commercial airline and following the low-cost model. The airline industry forms just one sector of the wider aviation industry, which also includes all the other aviation-related businesses such as jet engine suppliers, aircraft manufacturers, and aerospace companies. So airline industry is a part of the broader aviation industry. And if you call the aviation industry includes the airline industry, and then all the suppliers, the engine suppliers, the aircraft manufacturers like the Boeing and the Airbus, and the aerospace company. So normally when we look at the Google, we found aviation industry as a more profound word. And within that aviation industry, we find airline industry as a breakup of that. And this airline industry has been split into commercial side and been split into the non-commercial side. So just remember that. So I'm taking this paragraph as more important for me, Control C, and I'll take it back to my overview for the industry, and I'll just copy paste this paragraph here, and we'll just develop it in a summarized form. So we'll just say the airline industry forms just one sector of the wider aviation industry, just that is it. So, and full stop, we'll say the airline industry consists of the commercial flights and non-commercial flights. That is it. I don't think so we need to remember anything more than that. Non-commercial flights. And for us, the commercial flights are important because Corjetz is part of the commercial flights. Okay, just let's move on to the next information we have about the industry overview. The next information we have is the airline industry directly and indirectly support the global trade, tourism, and economic growth. Therefore, it has been a major influence on globalization in many countries. Hungary is politically stable and Hungary is economically stable. And that continent has a popular airline known as Corjetz, which are operating to 1,000 destinations across 1,000 routes across Hungary in 30 countries. So I think there's a lot of potential for other airlines to flourish in Hungary, considering they have a nation advantage, which we have discussed above. And more importantly, the contribution of these airline industries to your economic growth and tourism and global trade. So I think that's something where we can see more competition coming in Hungary in the future years. So that is how this industry supports global trade, right? So airline industry supports global trade, tourism, and economic growth. Control C. Just let's take that information on my Word file quickly. We'll just document it here and move on. Okay, the next thing we have about this airline industry is about passenger types, and then we have information about airline types. So we'll take passenger types and airline types into focus quickly. We have next information about passenger types, and then we have information about airline types. So let's see what sort of passengers we have here. Okay, now for any airline company, the passengers over here, they say there are leisure passengers. Number one is someone traveling on holiday to stay in a hotel or a holiday resort to relax and or the experience local tourist attractions. Then there is a business passenger in someone traveling for work purpose and will normally be attending a business meeting or a conference. Both types of passengers may be offered the option to travel first class, business class, or economy class by some airlines, right? So we have three types of categories in the aircraft. First class the business class and the economy class. So there are two types of passengers, leisure passengers and business passengers. So let's put them down under. So one is the leisure passenger, and the other is the business passengers. I hope you know the classification, need not to put any meanings against them. You know, the one traveling for holidays, tourism, and the one traveling for work. Now, in terms of the passenger types, the airline offers three classes in the aircraft. And all of you are familiar if you have traveled through the aircraft. There are three classes in the aircraft, namely, number one, we have the first class. We have the business class, which is number two in terms of your price. And the third and the most affordable is the economy class, where most of us travel. Okay, so that's how things are. Let's see what is the differentiation between the three classes you have in the aircraft. First class, passengers may pay significantly more for the ticket, but in return receive high quality service, including dedicated airport lounges, large and comfortable in-flight seats, and unlimited food and drink provided throughout the flight. Business class passengers may pay less than the first class passengers for their tickets and receive a slightly lower level of service. And economy class passengers pay even less than that, than our business class passengers. And an economy price ticket normally includes a standard seat with limited leg room and a standard and a limited in-flight option. So what is differentiating the three? The price of the ticket, leg space, meal service, and in-flight entertainment, right? And it gets the least on the economy side, it gets the highest on the side of first class. Now tell me, all of you, quick answers from your side. Corjetz is following a low-cost business model. So do you believe Corjetz aircrafts will be having all the three configurations, even without reading Corjetz? Will Corjetz aircraft have all the three configurations, business, first class, and economy? Yes or no? Will they have three configurations or one? Have you ever traveled with a budgeted carrier? Have you ever traveled with a budgeted carrier, any one of you? Yes, only. The budgeted carriers only have one configuration, which is economy, right? With very less leg space. No frill, right? No frill. It's a no frill model. So do no frill models have business class and first class? Recently, we have seen some of the low cost carriers have started with a limited version of premium economy or the business class, keeping just few 10, 12 seats at the beginning of the aircraft for that version. But majority of the aircraft run on the economy model. So I think if you look at the passenger types, which sort of passengers will be traveling on Corjetz, leisure passengers or business passengers? Which passengers would be traveling most on Corjetz? Leisure or business? Leisure, mostly leisure, because the tourist wants to save cost, right? The businessman, they can afford the first class, they can afford the business class, they can prefer traveling with Emirates airline, for example, but will not travel with like Fly Dubai in UAE. Okay, so we have three configurations here. So let's bring them down on the Word file. In terms of these three configurations, what is the distinct factor in the three configuration? The three classes are distinct on the basis of airfare, in-flight service, meals, and leg space. Am I correct? Is this statement correct? The three classes are distinct on the basis of airfare, in-flight service, meals, and the leg space. The highest in the first class and the lowest in the economy class. So please remember that. Now, as a thought process, when I look at this and I come across a thought process, even though I'm not reading Corjetz today, but this is my thought process. So I'll just put my thought process here and I just put this in red. And in my thought process, I'd write something here in blue. Corjetz being low cost and no frill, it is quite likely, probably, the leisure passengers will prefer it more Plus, they're ideally the Corjetz aircrafts will be having a single configuration, mostly based on economy. They can have some business class seats. Most of these budgeted carriers, even Fly Dubai, if you have traveled through Fly Dubai, they have some provisions of seats with better leg space. You have to pay an extra price for it. And they have some seats which they allocate into like a premium economy. But there's very few in the whole aircraft. Mostly you run the whole aircraft on an economy version. So is my thought process correct? Without even looking at what comes next in Corjetz. Suppose I've not read Corjetz and I'm reading it this way. So at this point in time where I am, is my thought process correct? It might change once I start reading Corjetz. Everyone agree with this process or not? Are you all fine with this? Okay, let's go down with the airline. Okay, thank you. Let's move down with the airline types. By airline types, they've divided airline types into two classes: airline types by service and airline types by business model. So let's do that. Airline types by service, number one, and airline types by business models. And we'll see where Corjetz fits into that. So airline types by service and airline types by business models. Let's see what that is. Airline types by service: international airlines, national airlines, and regional airlines. Where Corjetz fits in, tell me. Where is Corjetz fitting in? You read that in the overview. Is Corjetz international, national, regional? Very good answer. Regional. They're operating in the continent of Hungary, right? Are they operating outside the continent of Hungary? No. So they're a regional airline. They're not a national airline. What is a national airline? For example, an airline operating just in Pakistan, my country, or airline operating just in India, or an airline operating just in UAE. UAE would be a region because they consist of 7 countries. But an airline operating in India as a whole, or China as a whole, or Pakistan as a whole, that will be national, right? International is like Emirates traveling to so many destinations across the world with a hub service, right? Breaking every flight at Dubai. And then the regional carriers, they're just like the UAE carriers taking you within the UAE, not outside UAE, or just like the continent Hungary. So international, national, and regional. So that's what I need to remember in. So 3 service categories. Number 1, we have international, very big models like Emirates, then national, and then regional, where we have Corjetz, right? So we definitely have the Corjetz following this model. So for us, this is more important. And for us, this is more important to remember from exam perspective, because the company we are facing in this case study is Corjetz. Let's have a quick word on each of the 3. International airlines are the largest and often the most well-known airlines. They're offering you the global services, and international airlines usually have the multiple airport hubs, which provides customer with access to hundreds of destinations. Lots of countries, just like Emirates, have Dubai as hub. Lots of airlines have Manchester or airports like Heathrow as their hub, where they break the services, then they get all those flight services and the airport services, and then their aircraft is fueled up and ready for the next destination. So a lot of these international airlines have multiple hubs. So they offer those hub services, not point of point. National airlines focus on offering services within their home country, destinations with their home countries, and they're like smaller airlines, right, in comparison to the international ones. And the regional focus within a specific region, for example, a continent, right? So international airlines are the largest and often the most well-known airlines. So I hope we need not to take any facts here. International, national, regional. So region 1 is important to us. Within a continent, That's what we need to remember. National is within a country, and international is like globally, and the most popular one. So can Corjetz think about becoming international? Because they're already at the level of regional. So in future, can their board of directors think about making Corjetz international because they're the world's largest low-cost carrier by size? So can they expand it and become a global airline? So can there be a question asking you a proposal of Corjetz becoming an international airline? Can they ask you a suggestion of yours on that thinking process? So can there be a thought process here, a question in the exam paper asking you something right over here? So let's put the thought process here. Just 1 minute. What if a question in the exam paper ask you to evaluate a proposal of Corjetz, of evaluating Corjetz operating outside the region, or becoming an international airline. Is that something we can think about here? Because the examining team is telling us about the 3 types of airlines. So can there be a question asking us that how can Corjetz shift from a regional model to an international model? Is it viable? Evaluate a proposal, evaluate, or is it viable for Corjetz to move out of Hungary and become an international airline? How viable is that? So can something from the case study help you out? There would be a specific exhibit if that question comes in, and some information from here. You know, the international airlines are the more popular one, but currently they're operating a point-to-point service that might go against them. If they go international, they need to choose a hub. Coreland is their head office. Coreland can become their hub. Can they just offer one hub or multiple hubs? Because if they keep one hub in Hungary, they need to keep another hub in like Asia or in another hub in somewhere else, because they cannot just operate with one hub. They need to have multiple hubs if they become an international airline. So that could be something where the cost needs to come in, and the company needs to think carefully. But do you all believe something like this could be relevant in terms of the thought process I put on the screen for all of you? Do you agree or disagree with my statement or my perception here, all of you? Okay, so please keep that in mind, right? Okay, just let's move on back to the case study. Okay, airline types, business models. We have full service carriers, we have low cost carriers, and we have charter airlines. So full service, low cost, and charter. Full service, low cost, and charter. Okay, business models. Number 1, full service, low cost, which we are, and charter. Now, can Corjetz move from being low cost to full service? Can they think about changing their business model in the next 5 years? Because they're already very popular in Hungary. They're very successful in Hungary. It's been 20 years since they're operating in Hungary. And normally at this point in time, when you have an experience of 20 years behind you, you start to think about diversification. So is there a possibility of a question around diversifying out of Hungary, either in the context of becoming an international airline, or either diversifying in terms of becoming a full service airline instead of a low cost airline, because you have a 20 years experience of the same and you have been very popular, or the business might continue using the same model for the number of years to come. So that thought process which we took up in the services can also come down in. Just 1 second, right? Okay. So in terms of the business models, we have three business models, and you know that Handria is operating the business model which is at here, which is Corjetz, Corjetz is operating this business model. So can there be a question asking you about any proposals of a change in business model or any suggestions of the change in business model, or should they continue using the same business model for the years to come? I'm not writing any points against this. You all know the full service carriers offer a range of pre-flights and onboard services. With the price of the tickets, they may include check-in baggages, meal, airport services, multiple service classes such as first class, business, and economy, national, international, long haul. So full service model is just again like Emirates offering you class distinctions, so many airport services, shorter flights, longer flights, and they give you every possible opportunity. The low-cost carriers, you know, the low-cost carriers is the one which is Corjetz. So we can just take some information about low-cost carriers. Aim to gain competitive advantage over full-service carriers by reducing costs. So that's exactly what Corjetz is currently doing in very successfully for the last 20 years. So for the low-cost carrier, number one, because we need to have more information about the low-cost carrier. So that's I need that to be broken down. Number one. Number two, this is done in several ways, including having smaller fleets and smaller aircraft by offering a more limited service and by flying to smaller and less popular airports where landing and ground handling fees are cheaper. So that's what the low-cost carrier do. They normally have the smaller aircraft, not the bigger ones. They will not have the Airbus A380s or the Boeing 777s. You must have never seen the low-cost carriers with that. They normally runs on those 737 MAX, or they run on those Airbus A320s and the A321s, and particularly the Airbus A321 Neo model being very popular among the low-cost carriers internationally. So this is done including a smaller fleet, smaller aircrafts, by offering more limited service because no frill comes in. So that's one of their features, right, which is very close by to the organization we are having in the exam paper. B. This is what they do, and this is exactly what we have learned above in the overview as well. I'll just cut it short, but just let me copy paste that all here. For customers, flight from low-cost carriers often significantly cheaper. Services such as in-flight meals and baggage allowance will normally not be included. Instead, where these facilities are available, customer pays extra. So some low-cost carriers offer both economy and business class. So some offer both economy and business class. And I even discussed that right above with you, that what we are looking for, even Fly Dubai is offering you some business class seats or some economy, premium economy seats, but they're very limited. They've started on that model. So it's not all economy configuration, but majority will be economy configuration. So number C, some low-cost carriers offer both economy and business. So we'll see whether Corjetz is doing that tomorrow. Is Corjetz offering both economy and business, or offering one? So they can think about bringing business class services as well to compete with other low-cost carriers. So this could be an opportunity for Corjetz if they're not doing it. Opportunity for Corjetz if they are not yet offering the business class on their aircraft. So this can be an opportunity for them. You can think about it. But if you say no, they already have the business class services when we read tomorrow, so that's perfectly fine. So to me, this can be as an opportunity for the company to work on, if that is not the case with the airline currently. So we need to know the facts. So they are cheaper. You know the reasons they are cheaper as well. Just let's do it. Having smaller fleets and smaller aircraft, and by offering limited services. That is it, right? So that's what we can think about in the exam context. And again, no frills, right? So primarily no frills is a better word here, if you understand the meaning of the word no frills. So three models. So can Corjetz thinks about diversifying into the other models? Can they offer charter flights to broaden their business? Can they opt for a full cost service model in future, right? So we can have a thinking process here as well, just like a thought process we have here. Control C, and we bring that thought process right here. What if a question in the exam paper asks you to evaluate a proposal of Corjetz diversifying in offering charter flights or becoming or changing their business model to full service? What can be the pros and cons for that? Pros and cons analysis. Be prepared for that. So just a thinking process here. Diversifying, offering something extra they're not doing. Because see, every business, my point is that if you are in the business for last 20 years, tell me honestly, all of you, is it a right point that the business starts to think to diversify? Or you still do the same for 100 years? Every business you must have seen in your experience so far diversify after a certain number of years. They cannot keep doing the same thing again and again. Yes or no? I'm waiting for your answers. So do you believe this is high time for Corjetz to think about diversity? Right? So, and why is the examiner telling us so much about the business models and so much about the airline types and so much about this information? Why is the examiner emphasizing on that? So probably there is a hint of diversification. There is a hint about diversifying and doing something more than what you are doing for the last 20 years. So is diversification the need of the time for Corjetz, considering they are in operations for the last 20 years? So that's my point, right? So just let's write one more thing. Plus 20 years into business and being successful, should the business think about diversifying? And I'm not saying the unrelated diversification, diversifying the related one, at least doing something within the airline industry, at least starting the charter flights, or at least offering the international flights. So can you just have a related diversification, not the unrelated one? Is that a fine perspective? Right, so just let's move on now to the last part of our discussion for the airline industry, and then we'll sum up at the end of the day. Okay, so, and sorry, we missed out, there is a cargo airlines as well. So can they even offer their aircraft for cargo as well? Sorry, we just moved that fourth point off the cargo. So there is an opportunity for I think there's an opportunity for Corjetz, Control C, right over here. They're currently not offering cargo. They're currently not offering charter. So these can all be opportunities, and a question around that could come in the exam paper. So can they utilize the aircraft for offering cargo services? That will be an extra source of income for them. And can they utilize the aircraft for offering some private charter flights? Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for affirming my point of view here. Okay, Jen, let's move on down and we get to the terminologies, hub and spoke. I hope you're familiar with this and point to point. Corjetz is operating the point to point from one destination to another without a break, so more convenient for passengers. The Emirates model is more like a hub model. Every flight of Emirates needs to land at Dubai as their hub. They get all their ground facilities from Dubai, and then they fly from Dubai to another destination. So each time the flight has to be broken down at Dubai for the airport services, and then you move on. So many countries are taking this hub model in focus, primarily the international airlines. So if Corjetz think about diversifying from out of Hundria, they need to think about their hub. One of their hub can be in Hundria, which can be Coreland, where they're operating as their head office. But if they move out of Hundria, they need to choose another hub which can be used as ground facilities or airport facilities for the aircrafts, right? So hub and spoke versus point-to-point travel. I hope you're all clear on this. Hub and spoke versus point-to-point travel. Hub and spoke versus point-to-point travel. I'm just writing some of my points here. Corjetz is operating with the point-to-point travel model currently. Hub and spoke model is more popular with international airlines, not with regionals, not with regional ones or national ones. Right, so Corjetz is operating with a point-to-point travel model currently. My question here again would be, can they think to move to a hub model if there is a proposal to diversify to other countries outside Hungary? They can use Courland, their head office, as one of their hub for Hungary, but should also think about another hub outside Hungary if they go for that international diversification. Do you understand what I wrote in red, and do you agree with what I wrote in red? Does that make sense to all of you? Is that the right thinking process again? If there is a question in the exam asking you for a proposal of moving around diversification, and some of the thought process, I believe there could be a question around opportunities. There could be a question around diversification. There could be a question on proposal to do something next, because I believe this company is there for 20 years. It's high time they do something new. They move out, they start cargo, they start charter. So in any form, there could be a proposal. So be prepared for that. Okay, just let's move out of this scenario now. We got hub and spoke versus point-to-point travel. Then we have some key airport statistics given to us. That's very, very important. I'll just spend 5 minutes on that, the key airport transport statistics, because that can really help us in some sort of an analysis. Key airport statistics given to us. Let's see if that is anything viable here. Key air transport statistics, right? We'll just change that terminology. For people transported, globally, 3 billion passengers have been transported in a year in 20x2. In Hungary alone, 600 million passengers were transported. If you divide 600 million by 3 billion, I believe it comes to like 21%, if I'm not wrong. 20% or 21%. You can check that out and confirm me. So quite a significant proportion of Hungary, right? Quite a significant proportion of Hungary in the global passenger traffic. So is Hungary an important continent for lots of airlines? Will other airlines be focusing on this market? Because they believe there is a potential to capture from Hungary. 600 million people alone from Hungary in the total 3 billion globally. So do you find other airlines to be attracted towards Hungary, grabbing those passengers, attracting those passengers with more fares? Can this increase the competitive advantage? Can this increase the rivalry? Can there be a port of 5 forces coming here? Can there be a rivalry here? More and a threat of a new entrant in Hungary with so much prosper, politically stable, economically stable, 20% of the total global passenger traffic. So there are a lot of opportunities. I'll just come back to it quickly. Average number of commercial flights per day, 15,000 in Handria out of the total 73,000 globally. And I believe this is still the 20%, 20% for both. So I think it's 20% for both in cases. Yes, so it's 20% here and 20% here as well. So it's the same number we have for both, 20 and 20 for both. Okay, so quite a good size of number of flights per day. Okay, and then passenger revenue. 80%, $80 billion of a passenger revenue is generated from Handria in the total of 390 billion globally. And I think that is also 20-21%, something like that, if anyone can confirm me quickly. The total share of Handria revenue in the total global revenue. Is that 20 or is that 21%? 20? 20. Okay, fine. 20, roughly 20%. Okay, just holding that as true. So do you believe that's quite attractive? People transported and all these things. If you can just take to my Word file, Control C, and key air transport statistics. Key air transport statistics. And we have a business model here. Transport statistics. Just let me copy paste that and do a proper analysis. Control V. One is passenger, people transported. Then we have average number of commercial flights per day. And then we have passenger revenue, right? So three things on which we are comparing this. Okay. Now on this three basis, we know that Handria, if you can just put down a note here, that would be more appropriate for me for remembering exam paper. Handria, in each of the above case, is contributing 20%, is contributing 20% in the total global passengers, commercial flights per day, and passenger revenue. So I think that's quite a potential. So that's my note number one. And in my note number two, I'll be writing, this means there is a lot of potential for a threat of a new entrant. To grab opportunities in Handria. Lots of passengers and with an economically stable continent, we can foresee the passenger traffic to increase in years to come. Number third, this could intensify the rivalry in Handria airline industry. As more airlines can come in, offering competition and better fares. Full stop. Do you agree with 3 points I've just written on the screen in front of you? The threat of a new entrant, do you find that with the statistics we just unfolded? Do you find this could intensify the rivalry? Do you agree with my point or not? I'm waiting for your answers. Do you believe these three note numbers are extremely important? Because this 20% contribution which is coming in, I believe this is prosperous. Handria is politically stable. Handria is economically stable. the Handria has Corjetz, which is already popular for the last 20 years. They are one of the world's leading low-cost carrier and the second most popular in Handria. But can they face more competition in future with Handria being so good for the airline industry, contributing so heavily to the global airline industry with that 20% chunk, 1/5 of the global. So I think lots of airlines will keep their eye on Handria as a market to capture. So do you believe Handria is a radar map for many airlines to capture? If you are in the airline business, will you think about increasing your traffic, increasing your flights to Handria? So the key statistics is giving us a thought process of something around Porter, something around opportunities, something around threats, which can make ways for Handria. And with that big market, Corjetz is at an opportunity because they are the second most popular airline in Handria. So they can work on well for grabbing more market share, but the market share can be at risk if any new player comes in and give them a tough time. So is everyone clear with the key airport statistics? Are you fine with the analysis? Will you remember 20% in each case? Okay, we should move on, right? Just waiting for your answers to come in. The next thing is the flight maintenance activities, which is part of the airline industry. And as part of the airline industry, the flight maintenance activities at the airport is very important because that's how you keep the aircrafts fit for travel and you ensure security of the flights and reduce the number of air crashes, etc. So flight maintenance activities are provided at the airport, and the flight activities have been divided into further bifurcation. So let's see the flight maintenance activities and how important they are for an airline industry. Flight maintenance activities. Flight maintenance activities at the airports, right? At the airports, which are very essential for airlines, and that really helps them in the smooth working of the airline industry, avoiding crashes or any mishaps. Okay, let's see what sort of activities do happen at the airport. The air traffic control, one of the most important one. Aircraft ground handling. So just let's keep taking them on my word file quickly. ATC, aircraft ground handling. Number 2. Aircraft ground handling. Number 2. Aircraft ground handling, which is very important. Filling the aircraft with the services, the fuel, the air conditioning. Okay, then we have the baggage, obviously the baggage management as well. Industry challenges is the next heading. And then after industry challenges, we have the last one, which is the industry KPIs. Just let's quickly have a quick overview of the flight services. The air traffic control, you know, that plays a very important part. ATC is responsible for moving aircraft safely and efficiently through the airspace. So that's a very critical part of your overall service. And you need to pay for these services. That's part of your operating cost as an airline, right? You need to pay for these services every month, sorry, because you need to get these services, right? And then you have the aircraft ground handling, and the aircraft ground handling services includes the baggage management, you know, the baggage in and baggage out of the aircraft, customer service management, including the gate assignments, pre-flight facilities such as the operating shops and waiting areas at the aircraft, the lounge facilities, the boarding facilities at the airports, you need to pay for that, the baggage management, right? So you have those baggage management under that, number 1. So if you just break that down, airport, we have the baggage management, the baggage in and baggage out of the aircraft, baggage in and out, you know how critical that is. The second one we have here is the customer service management, which is important. Customer service management, customer service management, that's important for boarding, the boarding services. the boarding services or the lounge services. That's important for the serving of customers. You need to pay for that. The third in row is the third in row is the aircraft boarding management, including operating shuttle bus services between the airport and the aircraft, ramp facilities, all those ducts, the ramp facilities, and the bus services, right? So that's under the airport boarding management, ramp and bus, taking you to the aircraft. Okay, then the third is like the ramp service. You need to pay for it, and the bus service, which takes you to the aircraft, which is much needed. Okay, the next service we have under this is the aircraft towing and refueling services. You know, you need to tow the aircraft to the point where it needs to take off, and towing the aircraft when it's land down, and you need to take the aircraft back to the area where it will have the ramp facility. So refueling and towing facilities coming in. You know how critical towing is for the aircraft at the time of takeoff and landing both, and the refueling obviously is so essential. Then the last one is airport security, providing pre-flight passenger screening and security checks. You know how critical that is, and at every airport we need to pass through those security checks. So this is all the cost, right, which an airline needs to incur, and they need to pay monthly for all this facility, the airport air traffic controller and the airport ground handling. So that is the cost which they need to incur. We'll see how sizable that is once we move to the day 2 of the debriefing tomorrow. Okay, now from that, we move to the very critical part, which is industry challenges and the industry KPIs, which can really help us on the day 2. And then I think the last information we have is about the industry regulator. So that will just be taking us another 5 minutes perhaps on each one of them. Okay, let's see what information we have critical under industry challenges. Let's take that perspective in focus. This is a critical paragraph now coming in. I've already highlighted some of my analysis here, so will help me save my time. Now, under this, in industry challenges, demand is cyclical, with demand for flights driven by economic growth. In the last 10 years, low-cost carriers have increasingly taken the market share from the full-service carriers by offering passengers affordable low-cost carrier. This has made air travel more accessible to much wider customers globally. It has also introduced a high level of competition. See, lots of passengers. I think the bottleneck which comes in traveling is the cost. So the low-cost carriers in the last 10 years have proven successful because they have worked on a model which is close to customers. The customer wants to travel, but they don't want to pay a high airfare. So these low-cost carriers have proven as an opportunity for that particular customer, which are many globally. So the level of competition definitely has increased up. Even in countries which have bad economic conditions, the low-cost carrier is still an opportunity, and that is the reason they continue to grow even with not very good economic conditions. But yes, on a broader case, if economic conditions are good, the airline industry is directly linked to that, because if economic conditions are good, people will have more purchasing power, they will travel more, they will have more savings. And if they have more savings, they will spend that saving on the leisure. So you need to understand that this industry is run, this industry needs the strong economic growth to run properly. Tourism, if any country is working on tourism, if any country is promoting tourism, automatically the airline industry will flourish in that country, and other airlines will be attracted towards the country as well. So airline challenges, demand for flights are driven by economic growth. Control C, that's the first thing we need to keep in mind. Number 1, let's put that under industry challenge number 1. That is the demand for economic growth is driven by economic growth. So Handria is good. Handria is economically stable. That's why the demand is so high. 20% of the total global traffic and 20% of the global revenue is coming from Handria. Low-cost carriers have seen growth in the last 10 years. Low-cost carriers have taken on the market shares, and they're giving a tough time to the full-cost carrier. So that's where we can think, if the question asks you, should Corjetz diversify into a full cost carrier? You will say no, because low cost carriers are becoming more popular, and there's still an opportunity for Corjetz to continue the same model. Even though they become an international airline, they should not change their business model, because that is the business model which is more popular among the passengers. So they should not change the business model. Look at this. Low cost carriers have increasingly taken market share. So no doubt Corjetz should not change their business model at all, even though they become an international airline. Okay, fine. Next point. It has introduced a high level of competition to the industry just because of more and more low-cost carriers coming in. And you already read that Corjetz is one of the leading airline in the world in terms of the low-cost model. So that is where Corjetz has so much of an opportunity. Next point. When something critical comes in, I'll be emphasizing on that. Then the next paragraph is looking at the risk of the airline industry. The airline industry has been impacted by several geopolitical events in recent years, such as the terror attacks, cyber attacks, and extreme weather events caused by climatical change. These have led to both short-term and long-term consequences for demand. Terror and cyber attacks have impacted on customer confidence in the industry, and the climate changes is increasingly prominent on the global political agenda. So we have lots of risk coming here. So we make a separate paragraph for risk, and we means there could be a lot of emphasizing part in your task 1, 2, 3 somewhere in your upcoming exams around risk. So let's in the industry challenges, let's cover risk separately. Risk as part of industry challenges. The airline industry has been impacted by several geopolitical events. Number one, in recent years, such as the terror attacks, number one, cyber attacks, number two, and extreme weather conditions caused by climatical changes. And those climatical changes obviously are increasing a lot with global warming being disturbed at a global scale. So we need to keep in mind that there could be questions around sustainability, or what can an airline do for becoming more environmental friendly. We'll just come to that shortly. So the airline industry has been impacted by several geopolitical events in recent year, such as the three. And you know that this one, the last one to me, is the most important. There could be a question around sustainability, sustainability, or something, a question around environmental reporting, integrate, or something like environmental reporting, something about ISO 14,000 standards, ISO 14,000 standards, or something like EMAS, the Eco Management and Audit Scheme, which is part of your syllabus. Something around that would be in your any task, because I find that's where the focus is coming. Extreme weather events caused by climatical change. So how can the airline industry be proactive to that? And how can the airline industry ensure they work towards a sustainable business model with all these climatical changes coming in? And how can they better protect the climate? Okay, moving back. Another risk factor in the next paragraph, fuel is one of the biggest costs for the airlines and one of the most volatile. We know the fuel prices always remains volatile. Again, with the geopolitical conditions, fuel represents over 20% of the most airline cost base annually. The price of the jet fuel is strongly correlated to the international prices of the crude oil, which has been volatile. Fuel costs are particularly prone to foreign exchange movements. You are using dollar, right? Which can also have a significant impact on the major cost. So it's a major cost. Exchange rate volatilities, that's one of the major risks. So fuel is one of the biggest cost for the airline, almost considering 20% of your total cost, and it's very volatile. So that's where we know the airline industry suffers a lot in terms of their profit margins. So another risk they have here is fuel is one of the biggest costs for the airline and one of the most volatile. 20% of the total cost, total airline operating cost, prone to fluctuations, and can have an impact on profit margins. So you need to ensure that you have. If you are my regular students, there is a slide on EMAS, right, on my in my presentation. So fuel is one of the biggest costs for the airlines. And the problems with the fuel is that it's 20% of your cost, prone to fluctuations, and the impacts on the net profit margins for that. You cannot avoid this cost, but yes, you can take some measures like hedging. You are dealing in dollar, and we know dollar is a more stable currency versus the global currencies. But again, we know the geopolitical conditions always put pressure on dollars as well. Okay, moving back to the next scenario, apart from fuel, the next one is that the airline industry is still some way away from operating aircraft with alternative fuels. So there can be a question around this and asking you what proposals for using alternative fuels in the aircraft. We know Air New Zealand, I remember. Air New Zealand was the first one who used the coconut fuel to fly their aircrafts. But that has not been a model adopted by the other airlines yet. And again, Air New Zealand is not running every aircraft on the coconut fuel, but that was a successful trial. So the airline industry is far away from operating aircraft with alternative fuel. If they bring alternative fuel, that can save them a lot of cost. They can be environmental friendly. They can attract more customers. So there could be a business case around alternative fuels, such as biofuels, and most airlines are still fully reliant on the crude fuel. So look at this part. I think this is, to me, the most important discussions we are doing in the session today, because this seems like a very logical question here. The next point we're getting about the airline industry is the airline industry is still sorry, I'm just removing this heading of risk from here, just putting it under the industry challenges. The airline industry is still away from operating fuels with alternative fuel. And to me, this is a question which could be in task 1 to 3, alternative fuels, such as biofuels, and most airlines are still fully reliant on crude. And you know how expensive crude is. Look at the point above. So if you just start making a notes here, and to me, these notes will be important. The note number 1, a proposal to evaluate diversification, a proposal to evaluate a shift towards biofuels, alternative fuels. This could be a possible question. So you need to do the pros and cons analysis. Proposal to evaluate a shift towards alternative fuel, considering the high crude oil cost, plus the environmental implication, the climate implication, the climatical implication of using the crude oil. So you need to make a business case on that. Seems one of a question. Second to me is, why would you move towards the alternative fuel? Are your customer ready for that? Number 2, look at this. Governments and customers are becoming increasingly environmental sensitive. So you have a business case, and expectations for airlines to operate in a greener way is increasing. So I believe there could be a business case around a greener airline. How can Corjetz shift towards becoming a greener airline or working on the alternative fuel? Because the government and customers are already becoming sensitive to that. So if you want to encash upon customer psyche, and you want to win the customer hearts, and you want to be in the good books of the government and avoid any future penalties, you should shift towards a greener airline model. So I think the second reason why you should move at alternative fuel is that the government plus the customers are becoming sensitive towards environment, sensitive towards environment. And I think that will really be a helpful point for your business case for alternative fuels, becoming sensitive towards environment and greener airlines. So I think Corjetz can shift towards greener airline model. And you might be asked to evaluate that. Corjetz can shift towards a greener airline model. What can be the pros and cons of it? Definitely, there are more pros here, because you will be in the good books of the customers and government. You can attract more customers. You can reduce your cost and you can move away from the crude oil, which is very, very expensive, and your profit margins can improve as an organization. One more thing is, what steps are being taken by Corjetz for greener airline model? Can this be reported to the stakeholders as part of integrated reporting? So can Corjetz introduce integrated reporting model where they can tell their customers what the airline is doing for the planet and people, not just the profit. So can the integrated reporting model be beneficial for Corjetz to portray their image, what they are doing for the planet and the people, apart from the profitability? So I think integrated reporting, or the 6 capitals, or linking those down with the actions of Corjetz they can take for the greener airline, can also be a question in one of the tasks. So integrated reporting, a business case around shift towards alternative fuel, there seems likely. We've already seen an article coming under syllabus area H, which I covered in recently. The new article under the syllabus area H, which is about the project documentation, roles and responsibilities. So can they initiate a new project where they want to shift the airline towards the greener side, or they want to shift the airline towards the biofuel? Can they start a project to research on what biofuels are available for the airline industry as an alternative fuel? So I think that article in the syllabus area H article, the new one in syllabus area H around project management, can be tested if the Corjetz think about a project to develop biofuels as an alternative to crude fuel. So if they think about developing a project where they can start to research on biofuels as an alternative to the crude fuel, the examiner might ask you a business case on that project, or can ask you the PID. I hope you've covered the article. It has PID, it has the business case, and it has the role and responsibility of the project sponsor and the project board, and etc. So I believe somehow that article could be blended here in my notes. So are you finding these note numbers effective around this discussion we had? The airline industry is still some way away from operating airlines on alternative fuels. So can this be a potential opportunity which Corjetz can step into? So do you believe this is an opportunity Corjetz can take in? All of you? Just waiting for your quick answers around that. And are you finding my notes effective in terms of recalling them later with my recording available? Are you fine with my analysis? It's something around integrated reporting, how the actions of Corjetz could be incorporated in integrated reporting, or how the project management article can come in. And what about developing a business case for shift towards an alternative fuels can come in as well? Okay, so that's great. Thank you so much for that. Okay, now just moving on to quickly the last few parts of this. If the airline industry is to survive in the long term, it will need to invest significantly in the alternative fuel. Now, that is the key. So for their sustainability, they need to invest in alternative fuel. So I think a question around a business case on alternative fuel is high likely now. So it says, plus, look at this statement. If the airline industry if the airline industry is to survive in the long term, it will need to invest. It will need to invest significantly in the alternative fuel. So I believe my notes here are now more high likely. A question around a business case for biofuels or alternative fuels, or something like a project initiation document around the project to research into biofuels, something like that, or integrated reporting, the steps you are taking towards the greener airline or alternative fuels can come in. Because this word, invest significantly, is an opportunity for Corjetz. And there could be a question asking you that how Corjetz could initiate this quickly, rapidly, so that they can have a sustainable business model, being a very popular airline and the largest one. So I believe now the note numbers looks very, very critical for all of you. Okay, then environmental factors are a major and increasingly significant issue for the airline industry, affecting both passenger demands and operating parameters. Customers are becoming increasingly aware of the carbon footprints from airline travel, and is contributing around 3% of the global carbon emissions. So I think the customer are becoming aware of how airline pollute the environment. And if your customers are your important stakeholders, right? Keep satisfied, for example, in mental metrics, their power and interest. So if you don't want to lose customer and you want to build on the customer loyalty and you work on the greener airline and you tell as Corjetz to your customer that we are working on improving our carbon footprints. We are trying to move towards biofuels or alternative fuels to reduce the carbon emissions. Passengers will connect with you. You will have better passenger traffic with you because the customer psyche is changing. They're becoming more aware of the pollutions caused by the airline industry. So customers are increasingly becoming aware of the carbon emissions being caused by the air travel. So I think if anything is done good by Corjetz, would be an opportunity for you, and you can utilize this information for improving your profitability as an organization by winning the hearts of the customer. I hope you agree with me. Plus, another plus. Customers are becoming increasingly aware of the carbon emissions. So I think with all that, there is a lot of focus on environment, integrated reporting, a business case for moving towards the alternative. So to me, this paragraph, which we have taken all across, focus a lot on sustainability, a lot on environment, a lot on integrated reporting, right? So this paragraph is focusing on environment, sustainability. This paragraph is focusing on integrated reporting, need for integrated reporting, alternative fuels. So something around that looks very potential now. So I'm just give me 1 second. I'm taking this as a very important paragraph now. Okay, then lastly, despite environmental concerns, commercial airline traffic is increasing by 5% in 20X2 globally. According to the latest results, the airline traffic control environment is struggling to cope with the increasing flight numbers, evidenced by the number of delayed flights by 20% in 20X2. Similarly, airports around the world are struggling to cope with demands. This is leading to increased congestions at airports and so on and so forth. So despite the environmental concerns, which are increasing, still the air traffic is increasing by 5% on year. There are congestions at the airport. There are delays in the flight, which means there are more passenger traffic and lesser aircrafts to deal with. And that is resulting at congestions and flight delays. So this is an opportunistic side. But if you can start to work on the psyche of the government and the customers, I think building a brand for future becomes more easier. So last thing, I'm just writing this as a point myself rather than taking a point here. Just bring me back to that. Despite environmental challenges, the airline business has grown 5% year on year, and evident by congestions and flight delays at airports, which has increased by 20%, which has increased by 20% year on year. So still, it's a prosperous industry, but if this industry starts to work on the side of environment, it can be more prosperous. You will win the hearts of the customer. So please remember this point as well. Okay, lastly, towards the side of KPIs, the industry KPIs, where Corjetz can evaluate how good they are. So available seat kilometers is a KPI where you can evaluate your performance, how good you are for available seat kilometer. Revenue per available seat kilometer. Load factor, load factor is a very important KPI. That how much full your aircraft is. So when you fly from a destination to destination, it shouldn't be that 10% of the aircraft is just occupied and 90% is empty. So that increase your operating cost. Revenue passenger kilometer, how much revenue you're generating per kilometer per passenger. The CO2 per mission, I think that could be very important when you're reporting as Corjetz. What is your CO2 per passenger? Is it below the industry standards? Is it above the industry standards? Because that can really help you with your business case on a greener side. And when you are doing the integrated reporting, these KPIs can be very important in your integrated reporting, particularly your CO2 per passenger, and your punctuality could be very important factor in your integrated reporting, or your load factor, because that ensures your profitability. So I think these KPIs can be used for any integrated reporting as a business organization. Or monitoring your performance. So there could be a question around monitoring performance against KPIs, or how would you report these KPIs and your performance against these KPIs in an integrated reporting. So just let's copy these KPIs quickly as one heading. We have available seat kilometer, ASK, load factor, punctuality, CO2, industry KPIs. Number one, we have the available seat kilometer. That's number one. We have the load factor, whatever I remember, and punctuality is another factor, punctuality. Then let's go back to the CO2 emission, I think was the next one. Revenue per available seat kilometer, RASK. Then we have the next one, which is the revenue passenger kilometer and the CO2 per passenger. Okay, the next one is this one. And then we have the last one on the screen now, which is the the last one given, which is the CO2. But to me, how could these KPIs be examined? That is important. To me, these KPIs could be examined. Just let me guide you how. Okay. How they could be examined, because it's a significant part of the case study. So how they could be examined? To me, they could be examined. Number one, analyzing the performance of Corjetz against each of the KPIs, because the financial extracts of Corjetz have been given at the end of this pre-scene. So we'll be utilizing that tomorrow. So analyzing that financial performance of the company, or how the company can report the performance against KPIs in their integrated reporting, because lots of these things are part of integrated reporting as well. So or under the capital, look at these factors. Some of these factors are for environment. Some of these are for social and relationship, like punctuality. Some are economical factors. So how would you break this KPIs under different integrated capitals and report it to the shareholder? So how the company can report the performance against KPIs in their integrated reportings, or under different capitals, So I think a more of a financial assessment around these KPIs. Primarily, this is very important. This is very important because we are working on a greener side. We're working on a sustainable side. We're working on the alternatives to biofuels. So you need to assess your current CO2, and then you need to tell your stakeholders that how this will go down if you move towards the biofuel. So I think this is something which could be utilized, when developing a case for alternative fuels. So you can utilize this for alternative fuels. Yes, Ali Abbas, we cannot rule out a question on the Baldrige performance excellence. It could be possible because we have information around that as well. So again, that's a good thought process. Balanced scorecard or Baldrige performance excellence. But I think more of the environmental dominance task or an environmental side coming into any of the task looks more likely. Thank you for your input, Ali Abbas. It's quite well noted. So CO2 emission can be workable for all of you as an important factor. Okay, now that's bringing us to the last of things. We're bringing to the industry body. That is where we will be ending the session today, and we'll start with Corjetz tomorrow. Airline body. The airline industry has a global trade association. Its role is to help formulate industry policy and support airline activities. It promotes awareness of benefits which the airline industry brings to national and global economies. Its role is to also develop a global standard for the air transport industry and provides advice on airline safety, security, by settling clear defined rules. So again, this is the regulator for the industry. And this regulator for the industry is there to help you out with rules and regulations and safety standards and everything. So it could be possible that there could be a task in any of the area of your actual September 23 exams where an advice has come from the industry body for moving towards the biofuels, or an advice has come from the industry body of airlines to shift towards the biofuels or alternative fuels or sustainable practices. And as a pressure from the industry body, you need to work on a business model. So I think the industry body can work as a pressure for you to move towards alternative fuel. And the task can open up with something like the industry body has requested, or the industry body is working on rules and regulations for the airline industry to focus on biofuels and alternative fuel. So you need to prepare a business case in line with the upcoming rules and regulations. So I think the industry body can be crucial. If I just take that into my last perspective today, industry regulator as the last paragraph, I think this information can be utilized somewhere like the industry body encouraging something in the case like asking airlines to develop sustainable practices, or working on alternative fuels, or introducing integrated reporting as part of the airline industry, integrated reporting for. So I think the industry body in the case could provide an encouragement to Corjetz and to the other airline industry in the form of like asking them to develop sustainable practices, or working on alternative fuels, or introducing integrated reporting for the wider stakeholders. So such sort of request, I think, can come from the body, and those requests can take a shape of a question. So you might need to develop a business case, or work on something at the request of the body, So I think that's where the regulator role can come in. So we're ending the first part here. We'll be resuming with the second part tomorrow on Corjetz. Just a quick recap before we leave in. The information we got today was split into overview and the industry part. We just worked on the overview. In the overview, we got some information about Corjetz. We dropped that down on the screen. I discussed with you at some places, I highlighted them and put something in red, which is emphasizable. We came across the continent, and the continent being politically stable and developed. So we thought about the Porter Diamond here. Then you got a lot of facts about the airline industry, the overview of that. The passenger types, we had a thought process around the passenger types, about the likely question, the airline types, and a likely question around that. Then we went into the business models, and we had some questions around business models as well. How can a question come around that? Then we had hub and spoke versus a point-to-point travel, and the model being adopted by Corjetz was the point-to-point travel, and we had a thinking process here that if they want to shift outside Handria, will they be thinking about a hub? Key airport statistics was very much in favor of Handria, and that opened us this discussion around threat of a new entrant and the rivalry and how other airlines could be attracted towards Handria and how the existing airline Corjetz can take this as an opportunity to grow. Then we had something about the flight maintenance activities and how the ground handlings and the ATC is used as part of your services. So that was like very, very important. And then we had some industry challenges. Primarily in the industry challenges, we had something about risk. So I believe this information right over here was primarily about risk, which can, the question anywhere can ask you about the risk facing the industry and the likelihoods and impact, or how these risks could be mitigated by Corjetz in terms of transfer, acceptance, reduction, avoidance. So there could be a possibility of a question around risk as well, right? So just let me put here a question around risk assessment, which is the likelihood and impact plus the risk mitigations could be possible. So there is a possibility of a question around that. So also consider this as an alert from the tutor. So just make sure that this is also taken as an alert. Okay, so then we worked on the fuel cost being the biggest cost, and we had analysis around that. We worked on an environmental part, which was a critical aspect. Then we got some note numbers on environment. And despite challenges, the industry continues to grow. We had the KPIs, and one of the KPI was important, and how can they be examined in the paper. We worked on that. And then next we had the industry regulator and how the role of the industry regulator can be put in. I'll just be formatting this file in a proper font size and the font colors with proper headings. The text will remain the same, but before I just present this file to you, it will look more presentable. I will not remove any markings, not removing the colors, but just ensuring that the font size looks more appropriate when this file comes to you for a final printout. And the uploading will be done within the next few hours. And the support file, along with the recording, will be available on the portal. And the recording would be available on the YouTube for the public students. The file will not be shared publicly. The file will only be accessible by my exclusive registered students. I think I've covered the EMAS in the environmental side of my syllabus. So if you go into the syllabus area B, which is about governance, in the governance area, I've covered EMAS as a particular slide. Yes, the recordings will be available. So the notes and the recordings will be shared on the portal, and I will be updating. I even mentioned in my WhatsApp message that I will be uploading the recording and notes. I have always done that, right? So I hope you got an answer to that question. And yes, normally these sessions are done at a shorter notice. So tomorrow even, Emmanuel, expect the session to start at the same time tomorrow by like 9:30, 10. So just keep that in mind, and I'll be dropping a message for confirmation. But expect 9:30, 10 start of a session tomorrow as well. Was the session productive today? All of you who were there since the start, just give me a quick feedback. So I'm wrapping up the session. Was it effective in terms of understanding the case and the summary? All of you? Because we are having the first part today, which was the debrief around the airline industry. We'll do the debrief around the Corjetz tomorrow. We were just working on one part, not to make the session very lengthy. I hope you got some insights today. And I hope you got some clues and some hints of how possible questions can come in your future upcoming exams in September 23. So I hope you enjoyed the debrief session 1, which was around one aspect, airline industry. I'll be meeting you tomorrow for the debrief session 2, which will be around the Corjetz company. And that will be more interactive because we had a lot of industry information already today, which will help us connect them better with Corjetz tomorrow. So that was the session 1 today, where we focused on the debrief for September 23 on the Preseen element, and we worked across today the introduction part, we worked on the introduction part, and we worked on the airline industry. And tomorrow we'll work here on the day 2. I'll try my best to do so tomorrow. Any potential questions you can prepare in. So on the track of the topics we are predicting. And so let's first complete the predictions of the topics, and then let's put the likely questions around that tomorrow, right? The video will be uploaded in the next couple of hours. It takes time for the video to be uploaded. Wait for a few hours. It will be there on the portal. Thank you. Okay, have a good day ahead. Study effectively, of all of you. My students, wish you all the best of luck for your upcoming September 23 exams. Your tutor, Kashif Kamran, signing off from this debrief session 1 around the September 23 Preseen. Goodbye and Allah Hafiz.